Hello, dear. It's Heather, and you're watching Save Today with Heather J. I am somebody who has spent her entire adult life living paycheck to paycheck and being one life event away from financial crisis. That has not been a very comfortable way to live. In a lot of instances, it's quite scary to not really be certain what's happening next payday and where the groceries are coming from and if you have enough money to cover the rent. So it's time to change that. It can't continue to go forward in that manner. So it's time to start a budget, stick to a budget, get out from underneath my bad debt, and begin to start to save and plan ahead and have a better plan. And because that is difficult for me on my own, it's hard to sustain, it's not fun. Anytime I've tried it in the past, I think the longest I've been able to do was kind of a couple of months. And that is for a couple of reasons, mostly because I find it very boring and uncomfortable and just frustrating when you're working so hard, 40 hours a week, getting some overtime, and all you can do is barely pay rent and barely pay groceries. It's very discouraging to not, be instantly in the magical place you want to be. So I'm creating this channel and inviting you guys along with me, because checking in with you guys on a regular basis makes me need to check in with myself on a regular basis. And that constant check-in and the longevity of a channel, I feel like, is going to give me a better chance at long-term success. And I need the long-term to make true, real changes. So I'm inviting you along with me. Today's video, we're going to go over my spending overview for week 2 of my June month. I am paid bi-weekly every other Friday, and my rent is due on the 1st. And so those two factors combined are what sets my months for me. I have my rent is due on the 1st, and I have that set up for auto draft so I can quit getting late fees. And that means whatever paycheck absorbs the 1st of the month, that has to be my first paycheck for the month. So for the month of June 1st was in the paycheck I received on May 19th. My next check after that I receive on June 2nd, which would be a day too late to cover my rent. So for me, my month of June is a 3 paycheck month with 6 weeks in it, starting May 19th and ending, I believe, June 29th or 30th, whatever that Friday is. Let me see if I can find that out. June, that's May. Sorry, there's a train going by. I can't control that. June 30th is the last day of my June. So July will be back to a regular 4-week month that makes sense and doesn't start in the middle of the month prior. So for June spending, I go over and I check in with my flexible spending. And the reason I do that is because I am not a cash budgeter. I use my debit card for everything, and I don't keep track of receipts. Inevitably, I'll lose the receipt that I need, and I'll find a receipt from a year and a half ago that somehow has just been living in here. So by using my debit card, I'm able to go in and check my accounts and track that way. So for week 2 for me was May 26th, to June 1st. May 26th to June 1st is week 2 in my June budget. I'm going to be tracking all of my flexible spending, which for me is groceries, dining out, transportation, art, and miscellaneous. So the first spending I have in week 2 of June is on the 26th, which was that Friday. I went to, in my miscellaneous category, I went to Sally's Beauty Supply looking for nail polish remover. Yes, there are places I could have gone cheaper. In the same parking lot as Sally's is Walmart. I would rather carve out my eyeball with a spoon than go into Walmart for a single item, regardless of how cheap it is. I went in looking for the smallest nail polish remover. They didn't have the small one in stock. They had their medium in stock, so I paid after taxes $6.18. I'm not a particularly girly girl. I'm not super duper foo-foo. I don't tend to keep nail polish and nail polish remover in my house, but my granddaughters were spending the weekend and one of them wanted to paint my nails, and she did a fairly good job, especially considering her age. But of course it was not a professional job, and as somebody who's not super foo-foo, I didn't want that to hang on to, I didn't want to keep that for a long time, so that needed to come off after about 4 or 5 days. So that's what that first purchase was some nail polish remover. My next purchase was on the 30th, again in the miscellaneous category, and I had to go to Staples and get some copies of some forms. I've talked about the fact that I've moved a lot, and I had to fill out taxes for the 2022 and 2021. In 2022, I had to do taxes for 2 states and federal, and in 2021, I had to do taxes for 3 states and federal. And in my 2021 taxes, one of the states decided that I hadn't filled out the right forms, or I hadn't filled them out correctly, and they thought perhaps I had lived in that state the entire year. So not only did they not owe me a refund, they felt like I owed them money for taxes for the entire year, and now fines because that was 2021 and here we are 2023. So I had to go file a protest, which meant making some scanned copies of all of my forms so that I can send those in. So that's what that Staples is for $7.20, is getting the forms I needed so that I could file that protest and get my tax return and not owe close to $1,000 in taxes and fees that I don't actually owe. And then also on the 30th, I went in the groceries categories. I went to Kroger's and I just got some ibuprofen and a candy bar. I was only going in for ibuprofen, but I've mentioned a couple of times, really don't enjoy shopping. And apparently every time I go to the grocery store, I buy myself a treat. I reward myself for having to do this bad, horrible thing of having to be in a grocery store with 1,000 people shopping. I didn't realize I do that. Came home from the grocery store one time and my son came looking for the treat, which obviously I had purchased. And he was the one who let me know that every time I go to the grocery store, I get something. And since his pointing it out, I am aware that yes, in fact, that is something I do. At this point, it's not something I feel like I want to change. It's just an interesting thing to be aware of about myself. On the 1st, which was Thursday, in the miscellaneous category, I did go to Petco and get some supplies for my birds, and that was $11.55. And then the last thing I have for week 2 in my June is my transportation. Again, my son and I share a car, and on the days when the weather is lovely, which is basically every day right now in the middle of summer, it's absolutely gorgeous outside. But I will take the bus to work, which is just $1 each way. On Monday was Memorial Day weekend, and so the buses weren't running then. So I did take the bus Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of that week. So $3 in my transportation category, and that is it for my week 2 spending in June. So then we're going to go over here and we're going to work on the totals of what that is for me for this week. I have budgeted myself an estimate of what I might spend each week, and then I'm trying to keep track of how that estimate is going forward. So the first thing I look at is my groceries category. I had estimated I would spend $110 a week for a total of $660 within this 6-week month. And I spent $5.01 in that category this month. So with what I spent last week and what I spent this week, that leaves me with $573.43 to carry me through the next 4 weeks in groceries. My next category is dining out, and I didn't actually do any dining out on this particular week. So I still have, with what I spent last week, I have $129.64 left to spend in dining out in my estimated budget. And I just keep stressing the estimated because at this point I don't really know what's realistic, and I'm just having to estimate. I also am estimating a very fluid and consistent each week, and that isn't how things really lie as far as what I have available with each paycheck. At the beginning of the month, I have some very large bills that need to come out, which gives me very little flexible spending to pay. And then in the middle paycheck, I have smaller bills, so I have a little bit more flexible spending. So going forward, I might have to figure out either how to save and set aside so I have more consistent spending available, or budget it in so I'm not giving myself $110 a week, that I'm budgeting that $220 or that $440 on a very specific check and just go buy the majority of my groceries at once. So that's something I'll be looking at and evaluating over June and July. The next thing is my transportation. I had estimated I would need to fill up my gas tank 4 times every 10 days. In my 6-week month, that ended up being an estimate of 4 times. And I estimated $3.79 a gallon just because that was the last time I really paid attention to what gas was. And then my bus fee. So I figured $40 times 4 and gave myself an estimate of $160 for the month. So far with this week and last week, I have spent a total of $7, leaving myself with $153 left to carry me through the next 4 weeks. Art, I have not spent anything this week or last week in my art budget. I had given myself $10 a week for a total of $60 in this month. And so far I still have that $60 left to spend. In miscellaneous, I also gave myself $10 a week in that category. And this month I spent $24.93 in that category this week. Again, that was the nail polish remover, the tax forms, and what was that third thing? The bird supplies. So I spent $24.93 this month, and that, in combined with what I spent last month, has actually spent my full estimated budget in that category, leaving me negative 93 cents in that category. So in total this week, I only spent $32.94. I have $915.14 left to carry me through the next 4 weeks. We'll have to see. Again, my miscellaneous, if you watched my week 1 video, you'll know that most of my miscellaneous, in fact, all of that miscellaneous could potentially have been filtered into other categories. And we'll see if I feel like that was the better thing. $10 of that $36 was toilet paper, which would have normally been on my grocery budget, but because I had to send my son and reimburse him, then that was, and the only reason I had to reimburse him was that was his last $10 that he spent on the toilet paper. And so he hadn't planned for that in his end, and he needed that back for the other things he needed to do. It's not just because I'm the only one who buys toilet paper. That's just how that week went for the 2 of us. And then $26 of that was because I had not budgeted and not planned ahead for my bus trips, and I ended up being 35 cents short on getting to work one day, and so I had to go find an ATM to withdraw the cash from, so that's $20, and then the non-ATM fee from the ATM and out of whatever it's called where it's not your bank, from my bank. So those could fall under transportation and groceries. So there's that. So that is what I have spent this month, or this week, week 2 in June. So for those of you who are just here for my budgeting and are checking out now, I thank you for taking the time to be with me today. In order to make this fun and make myself more likely to stick with the budgeting, I have chosen to bring a craft into the back end of my video, so those who aren't interested can check out. But what I'm working on this month is a project that my eldest granddaughter and I picked out probably 2 or 2.5 years ago. I worked on it some. Things didn't go as well as I wanted them to. I didn't have my machines available for a while. It got put aside. Now it's coming back out again. She had picked 2 fabrics and a heart-shaped pillow form, and I picked some pom-poms that matched that and a zipper. And so she asked me to make her a heart-shaped pillow, and we had to buy a wide enough piece to make that. And of course you have all of the extra that's on the roll. So with that extra, we're going to make her a small little like lap blanket. I did finally, with lots of challenges, get this pillow done for her. And so she picked this fabric and then this fabric here. And again, I picked the pom-pom trim. Initially, I had wanted this to be the front side because I find that to be the more attractive fabric that she bought. I find this to be too muted and the stars are too dull. I prefer a crisper edge. It's not for me. I'm not the one who picked it out. She loves it, whatever. She can have either side be the front and she's going to love it no matter what. But this has given me lots of challenges, and I've had to stop and start and back up and take things out and redo them over and over again. And there are still things I'm not 100% satisfied with in this pillow. And if this was for anybody who was not a small child who was really wanting that, I would take things out and start all over again. Most of my dissatisfaction is in relation to the zipper we have here. Why am I pointing this out to you? Just because this is educational for me. Anybody who's interested in the crafting might potentially be interested in this. But the reason this has to be the back now is because the zipper is so obvious from this side and it's not obvious from this side. You see, you can't even tell that's there. In the future, a couple of options I have would be to do 2 layers of pom-pom so that one ends up on each side of that and that is sandwiched in between the pom-pom. The other thing I don't like is how much it pokes out. When I stitched the zipper in, I stitched it in at the same line that the seam line is here, but because we have so much extra between the seam line and the zipper tab, this actually pokes out. What I should have done was stitched the zipper in a little bit further in, and then this would be just, the zipper itself would be just on the same line as that zipper line. The other thing about the zipper that I'm not satisfied with is the fact that this pull tab ends up in the middle of the pillow. It really should be down at the bottom when it's closed the way it is now. So this should be in the reverse position. Again, just something I learned for myself. I'm not going to take it apart and do it again to fix that for her, because she's not even going to notice these parts of that, and she's just going to be thrilled to finally have it done. And I'm going to leave it at that. The next stage of that is to turn these 2 fabrics now into that lap blanket for her. And so that is what I will be working on now going forward over the next couple of weeks, is getting this done and turned into a blanket for her. So we'll see how long that takes me. It seems like it should be fairly straightforward and fairly quick. But I have learned with this particular project that that might not be the case, and I should not curse it that way. If I say it's going to be really complicated and plan for that, then it'll go together like lightning speed. But if I say it's going to be easy, I might be eating those words for weeks to come. That is where I'm at. That's all I've got for you today. And I will see you next time. I have been having some issues with my camera and recording and storage, which is why this video is late. I don't even know at this point if this video has recorded all the way to this point. If it has, and I've gotten those storage issues figured out, then we will have my paycheck number 1 closeout coming, my paycheck number 2 setup coming, and probably by the time that's done, we'll be ready for my week 3 spending check-in. So I thank you guys for hanging out with me today, wherever you're at, and whatever you're doing, have some fun today. Thank you now. Bye-bye.